Several people in our audience have had questions about and concerns about the water that our state relies on. Let's start with the big question that comes from Lori. She calls the Great Lakes our most critical resource. What will you do as governor to safeguard that resource?
Well, I talked about monitoring metrics. So one of the key metrics will be water quality all across the state. Not just over in our Great Lakes, which I truly appreciate, but also in our rivers, in our aquifers, all the way around the state. So wherever we have water that's being used for the quality of life of our citizens, we're going to go off and monitor it. And that's what our chief role here is in government, is to actually monitor the things that impact the lives of our citizens the most and secure their rights.
Steve, and Daniel in our audience want to know about your plans for the future of Enbridge Line 5.
Well, first of all, you need to have a discussion over whether or not you want any fluids to go from point A to point B at all. If you do want any fluids, whether gas, natural gas, whether it's just water, from point A to point B, the most reliable way, as an engineer who's done lots of failure modes and effects analyses and reliability analyses in my work on space station and a few other things, the most reliable way to get fluids from point A to point B is with a pipe. So if you recognize that you need to get fluids from point A to point B, a pipeline is the most efficient way of doing it. If you do it via freighter, there's all kinds of opportunities for accidents. Everybody knows Exxon Valdez, right? And that's something we don't want to repeat on our Great Lakes. We know about truck accidents on a regular basis, jackknife trucks. That stuff happens on a much more frequent basis, and rail disasters happen all the time as well. Pipeline, pretty quiet, and it is the most reliable way of doing this. Now, having said that, you got to make sure you're maintaining the pipe, right? And you got to protect it. And so I appreciate some of the discussions around protecting the pipeline, either by burying it or putting a little shroud on the outside of it. There's a lot of simple ways to go off and secure those lines. But overall, we need to, a pipeline is the most effective way to get from point A to point B.
What do you do? Excuse me. How do you intend to combat water contamination caused by industrial chemicals like PFAS?
Well, first of all, you monitor it and you understand where you're actually getting contamination, making sure that people are held responsible when they actually do that. I've got an issue with vinyl chloride spill here in my district right now at a plant in Livonia. And so what I've been working with DEQ and also DHHS on is, how do you determine what a clean bill of health is for the people that are in that community? Because there's a health issue associated with it. There's also a property value issue, because they're going to try to sell their home and they've got the issue of a vinyl chloride spill in their neighborhood. So what I've done is come up with an approach to DHHS and DEQ, and I said, I want to come up with a good housekeeping seal of approval. So that says that I know that these homes right here are safe because they meet some minimum essential threshold or whatever of safety on particular vinyl chloride levels, and then also the same thing in regards to property values. I want to be able to say that these are well within acceptable levels for any sort of transaction or sale of that home. So I try to work with it to get back to the homeowners and get them some peace of mind first and foremost. And if that involves remediation on the part of the offending party, then we'll make sure that there's remediation steps taken and hold them accountable.
Senator, should the state allow additional withdrawals from the Great Lakes Basin by bottled water companies?
As long as we're not impacting the overall quality of life. I think a lot of people are talking about the Nestle property in particular. And ultimately, this is a case where I don't know how many people would like to go on, the government to come onto your property and say, all that food you're growing in the back in your private garden, you have to make sure that a certain portion of it goes to somebody else. That's kind of a difficult case to make. I mean, we have property rights, and Nestle, as long as they're being a good neighbor to their neighbors and they're not lowering the water levels of the rivers, they're not lowering the water levels of nearby aquifers for their neighbors, if they're not lowering the overall Great Lakes levels, which by the way are at record highs right now, and I think we got to appreciate the fact that property rights are something that are supposed to be protected.